It respects no borders and spreads rapidly across the globe. COVID-19 has left many countries, including Malaysia, economically shaken. Unemployment has hit its highest levels in a decade, and the economy is expected to contract between minus 3.5 and 5.5% this year.
The pandemic is a global pandemic, and that's affected all sectors of economies across the globe. And Malaysia is no exception to this. So the Malaysian economy has also taken its beating.
The impact is felt across all layers of society, especially the poor, the most vulnerable, as well as those who have suddenly found themselves caught in the poverty trap.
Sebelum PKP, bisnes boleh sampai ke 2,000. Paling rendah pun dalam 800 lah macam tu. Tapi bila terjadi PKP masa tu memang kosong terus. Jadi tak boleh nak ke mana.
There were pockets of vulnerable and marginalized groups, families who had no access to food. They were getting kicked out of their homes.
The coronavirus crisis has driven up poverty levels in Asia for the first time since the 1998 Asian financial crisis. Can the new poor in Malaysia cope and survive the challenges in the new post-pandemic era? About an hour's drive north of Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur, lies a small satellite township called Bukit Beruntung. Designed and built in the 1990s to accommodate the rapid urban expansion of Greater Kuala Lumpur, it was supposed to be a vibrant hub equipped with an international airport, a university and factories. But today, Bukit Beruntung, or the Lucky Hills as they call it, only echo tales of loss and despair. Most of the projects, like the airport, were built elsewhere, leaving the town bereft of life and any spark of vitality. Rows of shop lots and an abundance of apartment buildings sit empty, slowly decaying. The town has since attracted those in search of affordable housing. 43-year-old Fakhrudin bin Jazmi and his 6 children have lived in Bukit Beruntung for more than 20 years now. Fakhrudin is a mechanic and used to work at a car factory 5 kilometers away before leaving to pursue his dream of running his own auto mechanic shop.
Sebelum ni saya bekerja di Produa Manufacturing daripada tahun 1996 sehingga tahun 2014. Dan saya berhenti, saya buat kerja-kerja bengkel lah. Pertama sekali saya join dengan ras garas bahagian mengecat. Kemudian saya join dengan airline satu garas. Di situlah permulaan saya bekerja sebagai mekanik lah. Mekanik, kemudian dalam tempoh 2 tahun saya bekerja di situ. Isteri saya sakit.
Unbeknownst to them, his wife, Fadila, had developed cancer.
Penghujung bulan 12 tahun 2018 tu sakit dia makin teruk. Rawatan tradisional Melayu, Cina, India pun dah buat. Last sekali dia pada payudara dia tu sebelah kiri keluar darah. Masa tu bawa pergi hospital Selayang, baru masa tu malam dalam pukul 2 pagi baru dapat tahu yang sakit yang dialami itu adalah kanser, kemungkinan stage 4.
Fadila died in February 2019. Despite the difficulties of raising the children on his own, Fakhrudin still managed to start the auto mechanic shop he had always dreamed of. He started his business in February 2020, but the timing could not have been worse. Just a month after opening, Malaysia imposed a COVID-19 lockdown. The strict measure had left all businesses hanging by a thread, including Fakarudin's new auto mechanic shop.
Kesannya memang sangat dalam lah. Maksudnya kita baru nak meningkat, tiba-tiba PKP, memang daripada pendapatan tu ada, terus kosong. Jadi kita tak boleh nak survive. Nak survive, kita tak boleh nak ke arah ke mana kita nak tuju bengkel kan. Jadi sebelum PKP, bisnes boleh sampai ke 2,000. Paling rendah pun dalam 800 lah macam tu. Tapi bila terjadi PKP masa tu memang kosong terus. Memang saya ada risau jugalah untuk meneruskan hidup masa tu. Cabaran terlalu tinggi lah. Dari segi kewangan masa tu drop. Saya pun hampir-hampir nak disuruh keluar daripada kedai tu.
All of a sudden, Fakarudin's life went from bad to worse. He now falls under the category of the new poor in Malaysia after his income fell to zero. Under the revised national poverty level, those earning less than $518 are considered poor. A friend then approached Fakarudin and asked him how he was doing.
Saya kata memang ada masalah sikit semua. Dan dia kata, okey, try jumpa Jah ni. Ataupun dia sendiri akan beritahu Jah, jumpa saya. Saya masa tu segan sebenarnya. Saya nak jumpa Jah ni sebab, yalah, walaupun saya ibu bapa tunggal, saya ada kederat. Saya rasa saya boleh buat sendiri. Tapi dalam keadaan masa tu memang saya tengah drop. Tak boleh nak buat apa-apa. Jadi kawan saya tu yang saya pura sama tu, dia sendiri yang beritahu Jah. Dan Jah datang sini.
Darul Jariyah is a welfare organisation which delivers aid to people in need, especially during these trying times. Jalija Awangkenit, or JAR, runs the organisation that has been helping people like Fakarudin ease his financial burden.
Assalamualaikum. Sorry ganggu lambat sampai. Yang kucing hari tu. Dah ada baby kucing hari tu. Oh. Pak Kadir ni adalah satu kes saya yang boleh dikatakan menyentuh perasaan lah. Sebab ketiadaan isterinya dalam waktu masa tu kita sambut raya kan. Jadi dia seorang suami yang penyayang. Anak dia pun tak boleh berengang dengan dia. Dia selalu mengadu dengan saya. Bila dia kata anak dia terlampau rindukan arwah kan. Kita sebenarnya dengan kes Abang Din ni kita ada banyak kes macam ni. Tapi kebanyakan ibu tunggal lah. Ibu kehilangan suami kita ramai. Tapi untuk suami kehilangan isteri tak banyak kes dia. Cuma Abang Din ni sebab anak-anak dia rapat dengan saya. Diorang panggil saya pun Mama Ja. Jadi salah satu sebab saya tetapkan untuk hantar hari-hari lauk. Setiap hari kita hantar lauk. Sebab ada sesetengah kes kita bantu sebulan sekali, ada setengah kes kita hanya bantu sementara saja. Untuk Abang Din kita memang bantu hari-hari.
There are many families in Bukit Beruntung that need help, and Jalija is constantly on the lookout for the people who have fallen through the cracks.
Kebanyakannya kehilangan pekerjaan, lepas tu pengurangan pekerjaan walaupun diorang dijanjikan akan ada balik kerja di tempat yang sama. Tapi saya ada 3 kes, info saya Kak Jah, bos tak dapat ambil saya sebab diorang nak kurangkan pekerjaan. Tekanan untuk isu sekarang ni sebenarnya bukan pada pekerja saja, bos-bos pun terasa.
The Malaysian Department of Statistics has revealed that Malaysia's unemployment rate has increased to 5.3% in May 2020. The number of unemployed persons has also risen by 47,300 to some 826,000 individuals. It's the highest rate in 27 years.
The worst hit sectors are the manufacturing sector and the services sector, and these were the major contributors to the GDP. And you'll find that both these sectors have taken a very hard knock as a result of the COVID-19. And also, it's not just the COVID, it's also the MCO, where factories had to close down, people were laid off, and as well as the tourism sector.
Peniaga kecil-kecilan sebab dorang sumber pendapatan harian dorang melalui perniagaan harian. Jadi apa yang dorang dapat hari itu, itulah dorang punya sumber pendapatan. Bila PKP, semua kena stop, mengejut. Jadi dorang macam tak boleh jual, tak ada pendapatan, memang stop.
The lives of countless Malaysians have been turned upside down as the world goes through the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. The hardest hit is those who are living in the bottom 40% of Malaysian society. The group is commonly referred to as the B40.
The poverty line is only an income measure. It does not indicate to you the other dimensions of poverty, which are equally important in an urban area. And then, of course, when you're talking about urban poverty, are you talking about it in Kuala Lumpur? Are you talking about it in Kota Baru? Because the amount of money you need to survive in Kota Baru or Kota Kinabalu or Kuching, for that matter, is different depending on where the urban poor are located.
For now, Fakhruddin is just hoping that the pandemic will be over soon. As the sole breadwinner, he has to shoulder a huge responsibility of raising all his 6 children single-handedly. And he needs all the help he can get to ensure that his business will not fail.
Yang saya risaukan sangat adalah COVID lah. Sebab kalau ia terjadi lagi, dia akan mengganggu masa hadapan lah. Maksudnya kemungkinan saya tak boleh nak survive. Pendapatan pun akan lagi drop. Pada situ yang saya lebih risau.
Malaysia has done a remarkable job in containing the spread of the disease and kept the number of infections low. But it's hard to mask the pain suffered by those who've suddenly found themselves caught in a poverty trap. While the government had devised various assistance programs and cash handouts to aid struggling low-income households, the pressure will continue to mount so long as the health crisis prevails. Greater Kuala Lumpur, usually referred to as the Klang Valley, has a population of over 7 million residents. This growing urban population has become more pronounced since the 1980s. People from all over Malaysia flock to the capital city in search of jobs to earn a better living.
What we do know is that the numbers of people living in urban areas have increased to about 66% of the population. And we can see a big imbalance in terms of the age groups. Larger numbers of people residing in rural areas are older Malaysians, and those who are living in urban areas are younger. So one can sense there is a continual flow of migration from rural areas to urban centres, such as that around southern Kedah, Penang, the areas around the Klang Valley, the areas surrounding Johor Bahru and the Iskandar region. So that is a process that continues to take place to this day.
The cost of living can be vastly cheaper in rural areas as compared to an urban centre. Port Dickson, or PD, is just over an hour's drive from Kuala Lumpur. It's a sleepy seaside town that will only come to life during the holiday season, when city slickers descend on the town to let their hair down.
One of the best thing of living in Port Dickson is you have the beach at your backyard. First, you don't get this in KL. So yeah, that's where I go to spend most of the time in Port Dickson, fishing, and which is also a hobby that I picked up from my father-in-law after moving back to Port Dickson. I learned it from him.
Malik was born and bred in Kuala Lumpur. He's a well-known cameraman who works in commercials, documentaries and feature films. In December 2019, right after the pandemic started in China, Malik and his family moved from their home in KL to Port Dickson. Unlike most people who are making the rural to urban migration, Malik was doing the reverse. That's because the film industry has taken a big hit because of the pandemic. Production work has all dried up. Freelance jobs that Malik had lined up evaporated. And Malik struggled to keep his boutique production house business afloat.
It was stressful, of course, because you have 15 livelihood under you, that under your care, that you need to make sure that every one of them get their salary on point on the date that you agreed. And of course, on top of that, you have family and all that. So it was not easy. Everyone thinks that it's easy to just make money, to earn a living by just picking up a camera, you know. But they don't understand that the experience is what matters. Yes, you can get a job, but if you do not know how to deliver, or you do not know how to solve any situation that you face during production, you know, then you don't get paid. So on our end, we have the experience, but the one who is hiring do not see that. So this is the challenge.
Before the pandemic hit, Malik had 3 jobs lined up. Since then, 2 of the jobs have been cancelled and the other delayed. If there's one thing that the pandemic has done to him, is that it has altered his worldview and his approach to life.
This year, 2020 to me is a year of humility and empathy. Seriously, all the while we've always been in the comfort zone. We forgot that little things in life that make us happy. So during this pandemic times, this coronavirus thingy that happened, really created an impact and a reminder. It's some sort of like a wake-up call. Hey, look, you really do not need to go out. You spend more time with your family. You know, you earn as much as 5 ringgit. If you're able to earn 5 ringgit a day, it's good enough really. You're happy. You don't need to earn 5 million a day to be happy. You know, these basic things. So that is what I tend to realize. And because we've got 3 months at home to just sit and think and then reflect.
With no job prospects in the near term, Malik needed to make sure that he's able to put food on the table for him and his family. To keep themselves afloat, Malik and his wife Emily decided to start an F&B business.
Well, work, first of all. Living in PD, you don't need much, but you still need something to survive on. I mean, it ties back to the other question. Yeah, my husband is he's the main breadwinner of the family. So when things started to get serious, the government announced the MCO, we were worried, like how are we going to make ends meet? You know, savings account was depleting, and you know, a lot of jobs got postponed, cancelled. I mean, being a freelancer, we decided to do something from home, and food was the obvious choice because delivery was we can still deliver around the area.
This home business that we are currently doing, it started off as a moms and pops business, as a word of mouth, that kind of thing. So it will stay that way, and we cannot cope that many orders also, and also we need to marinate a day before and all that. It's tedious work, you know. It's something that managed to give us some income. You know, why not to keep it going?
So for my son Omar, it was important for him to see as parents, dealing with this challenge in a positive way. So we decided we included him in food preparation, and he watched us. And the money coming in also, he could see that it helped the family. So definitely, yeah, we're glad we did it.
Despite the difficulties, Malik remains optimistic about his future. The situation, he feels, will get better soon.
Jobs prospect, there will be jobs. Definitely there will be jobs. It's just that the approach towards jobs will be different regarding the SOPs and whatnot. So there will be jobs. Bang, dapat ikan apa bang?
In a time of crisis, life in rural Malaysia has become an attractive option for urban dwellers. For now, Malik is enjoying a simpler life in PD.
Ya, masa MCO dulu memang tak dapat nak buat apa kan, terpaksa duduk rumah kan. Ni dapat balik kampung, bolehlah apa mancing.
Macam mana ada terjejas pendapatan ke apa ke masa PKP? Abang buat bisnes apa?
Saya kerja swasta lah, kerja kat Salam lah kan, operator lah. Tapi alhamdulillah lah, tak ada masalah lah untuk gaji bayar lah.
Masih okey lah, boleh jalan lah.
Ya, boleh jalan.
Macam abang ada kenal siapa-siapa yang terjejas?
Ada.
Ada? Siapa?
Kakak saya dia syarikat pelancongan. Terjejas lah. Tak boleh nak buat apa lah kan, pelancong masalah kan.
Rugi habis lah?
Ya.
Tapi abang gaji jalan lagi?
Ya, alhamdulillah lah, gaji jalan lagi lah. Kalau tak ada tu masalah agak lah kan. Memang terjejas lah.
There are some people who say that the economy probably will take another 6 months to a year to improve, and there are others who say that it will take a lot longer. So every sector in the economy is affected, whether you take the education sector, the health sector, the manufacturing sector, the services sector, tourism, and there's some predictions that I've seen where they say the tourism sector is expected to only recover in 2022-23. So that's a long time.
According to the Merdeka Centre, there will be an additional 5 to 8% of the Malaysian population that will fall into poverty because of the pandemic. That's about 1.5 to 2.4 million people.
The pandemic, I think, has affected people in different ways. In urban areas, I think we've seen job losses happening within the retail and the services sector. We actually were able to carry out a survey, and we did find that as many as 1/2 of the population of the workforce actually suffered a loss of income, and some suffered the loss of their jobs. So I think for some of these people, maybe a small number, they went back to their hometowns because they do have some form of support systems in the hometown. They can go back to their parents' houses, and they at least have access to a lower cost of living for them to address things while things were uncertain.
For Malik, his production house in KL today only exists in name. There are no projects coming in to sustain his business, and no more funds to keep it going. His priorities in life have now changed in a blink of an eye.
Even now, with whatever that's happening now, the pandemic, people would not want to spend tight fists. Tougher. The only way for us to get job now is to reduce our rates, and we cannot be going around saying, this is my rate, you pay me. No, let's say thank you very much, we have other ones. Yeah. Competition. Yeah.
It was kind of a wake-up call. I think we can't go on living the way we do, in very materialist culture. At the end of the day, human lives matter, family matters, and that's the most important thing of all.
Joblessness and sudden loss of income have left many households struggling to stay afloat during the pandemic period. Similar stories of pain and hardship which are being shared by residents all across the country. Some are much worse than others. When will it end? Sabah is one of the poorest states in Malaysia. Poor infrastructure, high cost of living, and low education levels are often associated with the state. While the poverty rate in Sabah has been steadily decreasing, the pandemic has thrown years of effort out the window. Today, 19.5% or almost 100,000 of its residents live below the poverty line. Sandakan is a port town on the east coast of Sabah. In its heyday, the town was said to have the highest concentration of millionaires in the world, mostly linked to the timber industry. Its fortunes, however, changed after World War II. Today, it's home to some of Malaysia's poorest communities.
Based on the latest statistics available, which we gotten from 2016, our Sabah poverty rate stands at 2.9% as compared to the national level at 0.4%. So it is around seven times higher than the national level. And with the pandemic that is going on, Sabah is definitely facing a big challenge as compared to the past years. A bigger challenge.
31-year-old Vivian Wong is a politician from Sandakan. Unlike many of her peers who have moved to the bustling urban centres, she has chosen to stay in Sandakan. Vivian received many calls for help, in particular the mothers of Bahala Island, who are in need of infant milk powder. She then approached an NGO called Future Alam Borneo. Through crowdfunding, they managed to raise about $4,800 to buy infant milk powder for mothers on the island who couldn't afford to feed their babies. While Malaysia has enforced social distancing measures and mandatory use of masks, the rules might not have been observed strictly by rural communities in Sabah. Many of them simply can't afford to buy a mask.
Berapa umur? 2 tahun masih okey lah. Wah, tahu betul. Siapa yang ajar kamu?
50-year-old Sadia Binte Laudin lives on Bahala Island. She works as a cook and cleaner in a children's learning centre set up by the military outpost on the island. When Malaysia went into lockdown, she was lucky not to lose her job. But her salary came late and she wasn't able to feed her 6 children.
Susah jugalah sebab gaji mau 25 hari bulan. Bulan lainnya macam dia masuk bulan 1 mau bulan 2 baru masuk gaji. Susah sikitlah dapat tu pemula. Sebab kurang bajet lah. Nasib ada tu yang bantuan 1.600 tu. Tapi saya dapat 1.000 sejak 600 tiada. Itu saja. Saya guna duit itu untuk beli keperluan anak lah. Saya beli itu formula. Saya beli dia punya pampers.
Sadia's husband works as a fisherman. During the lockdown period, the family found it very hard to survive on the husband's meagre income, especially with all the restrictions that were put in place.
Kadang-kadang boleh, kadang-kadang tak boleh. Sebab ada menjaga di laut kan. Diorang suruh pulang kalau diorang nampak pergi laut. Tidak boleh pergi laut. Kadang-kadang dia boleh pergi laut. Dia dapat macam tidak banyak lah. Macam tu 3-20 begitu, 20, 30 dia dapat. Cukuplah untuk makanan 2 hari kah. Untuk beli makanan. Kadang tu dia tidak ada lah. Kadang dia tidak dapat pergi laut. Susah jugalah. Selama PKP itu ada rasa risau sikit lah. Sebab keadaan kita, kehidupan kita susah sudah. Kita mau pergi laut pun atau kita pun mau pergi jalan kerja pun. Sekarang tidak masa PKP itu tidak boleh. Nasib kerajaan ada bantu kan. Itulah yang kita guna untuk kita punya perbelanjaan harian. Kita bagi-bagilah duit tu macam kita Bagi-bagi macam 1 bulan kita guna sedikit, janganlah terus kita guna semua tu kan. Macam itulah saya punya.
Further compounding the problem is the state of the economy. Many people in Sabah rely directly or indirectly on tourism. The state has long been a tourist magnet due to its natural attractions like Mount Kinabalu, as well as its natural forests and beaches. Without the tourist dollar, it's very hard for the state to earn the much-needed revenue.
But because of the pandemic, definitely we are facing zero income from tourism, which all the tour operators some of them have to cease their operation for a moment. In Sandakan, we are facing a few hotels has already announced that they will cease their operation. So roughly a few hundreds in hand that we know will face unemployment during this period.
Tourism accounts for more than 10% of Sabah's GDP. As early as January 30th, the state halted international flights from China, cutting off a vital economic driver for the people who live here. While the preemptive move was made to protect the tourism industry, it couldn't do anything to avert its rapid decline.
Sheraton Four Points is the biggest hotel in Sandakan. So Sandakan is a town that has very limited number of tourists. It's only 3 or 4 months a year that we have an oversupply of them. The rest of the year is quite quiet. So as a 300 plus room hotel, it was understandable that they would struggle to sustain their numbers.
The Sheraton Four Points was the first hotel to shutter in early 2020, and it wouldn't be the last. Apart from running an NGO, Anton is also involved in the tourism business. He and his wife run a boutique hotel called Nak.
Our hotel business has been struggling for a number of years, but our F&B does very well. So it is one business supporting 2 businesses, to put it very simply. Our F&B did very well. Good crowds, good. We have a very diverse crowd of customers, from families to tourists, to young couples, to drinkers, to non-drinkers. So we capture a large section of the F&B market in Sandakan. But then when the borders closed and the numbers dropped to 0 and all that, the reality sunk in. Bank Negara asked all the banks to offer businesses financial support through loans, very low interest rate loans. We were one of the few who right in the beginning thought, let's try to apply. Then when the banks came back to us and offered us a certain package, we realized that if business continued at this level, we'd have an extra burden of debt that we didn't really need, because we really could not see how we were going to generate anywhere near normal sort of business volume to be able to pay our staff, keep everything running, and service a loan and interest, even at the very low rate.
Nak is one of Sandakan's oldest hotels. In June 2020, Nak would host its last guests before shuttering. Lynn captured these memories from its last day.
That's it. So, it's about 3 p.m. now. Our signboard has come down. As you can see, established 1966. We have a bit of a queue at the door. We're trying to follow all the SOP even for the last day as well. Everyone's trying to get in at the very last minute. So this is Has. We are in our pastry kitchen. This is where we make all our lava cakes, all your cheesecakes. And I think she's making the last batch of lava cakes for tonight. This is a dessert that we've been serving for the past 12 years since the beginning of time. Jadi, anything you want to say? Malu lah, Miss. Astaga, malu. Cilaka. She doesn't talk a lot, she just laughs a lot non-stop.
I'm really sad in a way to see it. Whenever someone is like telling us that they're gonna shut down, I always approach to their boss to talk to them on what anything that we can help or assist, because in Sandakan it's like a family. Everybody know each other.
Bos kami Mr. Antonin announce yang kami akan tutup, memang semua staff shock lah sebab efek pandemik ni memang sukar, terutamanya untuk mencari kerja lain lah. So bila yang hotel sudah since 66 sudah membangun tiba-tiba tutup, macam satu kehilangan besar lah untuk Sandakan.
Our main concern was always our employees. Because when you work in the hospitality and F&B industry, a lot of them are B40 families. A lot of them are breadwinners. So, our sort of first action in mind was really to, okay, let's figure them out first. What are we going to do? What are we going to offer to them? And then deal with the emotions later.
For me personally, it's sentimental because it's named after my grandfather. So a lot of the relatives' expectations was on mine and her shoulders. But I think they realized it's been a struggle running the business. So with the COVID coming in and all that, it was somewhat inevitable that we needed to do something drastic. Yeah, and closure, until we figured things out, was the best solution.
How much has the government done to help reverse their dwindling fortunes? The COVID-19 pandemic has ravaged the global economy and upended lives. It has also posed a great challenge to the poor, who have suddenly found themselves stripped of their livelihoods and main source of income. To help minimize their suffering, governments all over the world, including Malaysia, have pumped in billions of dollars to alleviate their financial burden and keep the economy going. The Malaysian government has unveiled 4 economic stimulus packages, totaling an estimated $75 billion. They are part of a series of fiscal measures to help cushion and mitigate the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on both business and households.
In terms of the specific plans, I think there's a few good ones that have kind of been effective in helping the businesses and the individuals to brace through this crisis. So one of them is the wage subsidy program, which is good to help. It's a two-pronged thing where it helps to reduce the loss of employment and also help businesses to sustain throughout this time.
While these rescue packages have been valuable to the country, the benefits have not been felt fully by those who fall outside the scope of formal employment. They're also not registered with the necessary mechanisms through which aid can be efficiently dispersed. And it would require specific efforts to reach out to those who have fallen through the cracks and have gone completely unnoticed. Kachera Soup Kitchen, for example, provides food for the urban homeless who roam the streets of KL. They have been operating since 2008. Every Saturday night, teams of people spread out across Kuala Lumpur to distribute around 500 packets of food to the needy and the homeless.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. My name is Justin. Just a simple message across to every one of you. Thank you for coming. And we're here tonight to help look for our street friends. There's about 474 packets of food. We have food team, we have medical team, we have registration team, and we also have a responder team.
In this urban jungle, the homeless can be seen at various corners of the streets, turning these places into their temporary shelters for the night. Several soup kitchens and shelters operate in the area, offering reassurance that they won't go hungry, at least for one night.
The situation before pandemic is very different. We are seeing a lot of poor people, yeah, no doubt about it. But after MCO, we are seeing more and more people becoming more struggled.
So I think the government is working on an initiative now where they're sort of getting people to coordinate all the different types of help needed and products and services that are needed, and sort of coordinating to see in real time what the communities, different communities in, getting together, all the different NGOs working together in that space and sort of forming clusters so that they know which NGO is doing what. So you have like a food security cluster, or you have, a livelihood cluster, or you have, health clusters. So they're able to see which NGO is doing what where, and where are the missing gaps, and then getting other people to come in and doing it. But I think they're still working on it. So that's an amazing initiative that's happening now.
While there are new faces on the streets of downtown KL, there are also some familiar faces. Adnan has been living on the streets for more than 15 years. He repairs fans for a living and uses whatever little money that he gets from servicing the fans to buy food. All the restrictions which have been imposed to contain the spread of the pandemic have also made the situation even worse for him as jobs become scarce.
Berapa dapat upah macam tu?
Macam tadi saya kerja Bukit Beruntung.
Ya, ya. Oh, you pergi kerja? Tadi?
Orang angkat lah.
Ya, angkat barang ke apa? Ikut lori?
Bukan ikut lori. Orang mau pakai bekerja.
Ya?
Daripada Bukit Beruntung mari, jemput, nanti dia balik hantar.
Oh.
Dapat RM70.
Okey lah, hari ni kira dah settle lah.
While Adnan could call his children for help, pride, shame, and old wounds prevent him from reaching out to them.
The uncle who fixes the fan one is quite interesting. He's an interesting guy as well. Doesn't want to burden the family, and then literally they have a family, but they are like not in the good system like that. They don't really take care of each other, or probably by not staying together, that would mean it is something that they are helping already, because they don't want to be a burden to their life.
Justin comes across a new face that has found her way onto the streets. She has a wound, gangrene feet caused by underlying health issues.
Ini saja kan? Kaki kiri saja, lain tak ada. Ada bengkak tak ada? Oh, berapa lama sudah?
Tadi dia doktor buat.
Ya. Ya.
Dia dah okey dah.
Ya.
Ini berapa lama sudah?
Minggu lebih lah saya ingat.
Ada kencing manis tak?
Ha?
Ada kencing manis tak?
Memang saya kencing manis, doktor.
Ada checking tak?
Ada cek tak?
Ada checking.
Wah.
Dia ada 2 meter.
Glukus.
Ni nak rap tak, doktor?
Rap bungkus lah. Berapa tinggi sekarang kencing manis?
Ada ya? Tapi tak tahu lah, doktor.
Tak tahu lah, tak pasti ya?
Dah 6.
Ya, ada saya.
Ada makan ubat tu biasa. Okay, never mind, because why she needs a wheelchair.
It's in the storeroom, right?
Talk to the guy lah, then see whether can.
It was the senior citizens, the single mothers that were the hardest hit, I think, and the children, because they didn't know where to go, where to turn to. Of course, it hit really hard during COVID-19. No husbands, no job, no money for food. Kids were at home, not even in school because they couldn't go anywhere. They didn't know what to do. The elderly and the sick couldn't move, couldn't do anything, helpless. They're the ones I think that suffer the most.
Most of the people that are in desperate need are the elderly. Lau Keng is 85 years old. Her husband has died and her children rarely visit her. Her eyesight isn't great. She can still walk, even if slowly, to the coffee shop to get her favorite drink, or the convenience store to buy a loaf of bread.
我一個人住嘅，親人冇幾多個啫，好少你揾嘅，咩都冇。我自己一個人喺度啊，落下樓下湊下啲細佬哥啊，有陣時啊女唔夠啊，幫人哋洗下碗啊，洗下衫過生活啫。政府有派，但係我冇本事攞，好遠，有電話嚟，阿婆婆有嘢派，我冇本事行，我根本上冇力個腳。
You can't ask someone to fill in a 16-page paper or to fill in even a 2-page paper online when they don't have internet, or in writing if they can't read and write, or they're just intimidated by having to fill out a 2-page questionnaire or whatever it is to determine whether they deserve food. You can't determine if someone deserves food. They deserve food. It's food. And so we're talking about basic needs. So it's just a little easier to, I guess, get a number of someone you know who will help and call that person out, which is what I'm getting. So there are screening processes in place and criteria that we look for, and there's a check and balance. But food is food, yeah. Shelter is shelter. You need it. It has no condition.
So in 2019, we have around 405,000 households in poverty. So that's quite a major reduction as well, although it's only 2% reduction. So we have done quite well in terms of reducing poverty in Malaysia. So I think that one of the few key factors that have affected and contributed to the reduction is basically, I think one is of course economic growth and development. That is one big factor, but also the very inclusive policies that we have done throughout the years, and policies that empower people, basically empower the poor especially. So these are some of the things that some segments of the society are being left out of the social assistance. Of course, government has done some measures to go into the villages, interiors to distribute assistance. But this has shown that there is the mechanism that we have is not holistic enough to tackle and target everyone in the society.
I think for the most part, the Malaysian government realizes the extent of the problem. And I think they are trying to be quite prudent in the way that they are trying to address it. Meaning to say that they have not turned on the taps, in a very great way, flooding the country with cash. They have actually done it very judiciously in stages in order to counter specific effects of the pandemic in parts of the economy. So all of those things are slowly being done. I think the question now is whether or not all of these efforts is enough to counter factors that are beyond the control of the Malaysian government, which is the global economy and also the strength of the country's trading partners, whether they are able to do two things. Number one, address the pandemic in their own respective countries. And number two, resolve their economic woes as well.
Malaysia has fallen into a recession. Its GDP fell 17.1% in the second quarter, its deepest contraction since the 1998 Asian financial crisis. The country's economy is also expected to shrink between 3.5 and 5.5% for the rest of the year. COVID-19 has dealt a severe blow to the economic livelihood of many countries, which have done an admirable job in lifting many of the poor out of extreme poverty. And Malaysia is no exception. The authorities have charted a course for sustainable recovery. But the sharp economic pain experienced by the people has left an unforgettable mark on this generation of Malaysians. For the urban poor living on the edges of society, the challenge will be even greater as jobs become much harder to secure, especially in the current economic environment. One can only hope that the pandemic will disappear much sooner rather than later.